All right, get ready, because today we're going deep, deep into a world where ancient African symbols meet cutting-edge physics.
That's right.
And where, get this, the very fabric of reality could be woven with, like, error-correcting codes.
Really is a fascinating mix of ideas.
It really is. It's pretty wild. So we'll be exploring Echotruth, Adinkra Codes, Human Behavior, and Inner Spirit.
Yeah.
A book that tackles some seriously mind-bending concepts.
Yeah, it does.
Physics and philosophy colliding.
Mm-hmm.
I'm already so intrigued.
Yeah.
Let's start with those Adinkra codes.
Okay.
What are we talking about here?
So, well, they're not some secret language, although they might feel like that.
Right.
They're visual symbols that are used by the Akan people of Ghana
Okay.
and the Gamin of Côte d'Ivoire, both of whom were expert gold miners.
Gotcha.
Each symbol embodies a concept, proverb, or philosophy.
Okay. Beautiful symbolism from a rich culture. I get it.
Yeah.
But how does physics get into this picture?
This is where things get really, really interesting. Professor James S. Gates, he's a theoretical physicist, discovered that the Adinkra symbols could actually be used to represent complex mathematical equations
Wow.
related to supersymmetry.
Hold on. Supersymmetry. I mean, that's a pretty complex concept to just kind of drop in there.
Sure.
Can we unpack that just a little bit?
In the simplest terms, supersymmetry is a theory that proposes that every known particle in the universe has a partner particle.
Yeah.
So for every electron, there's a hypothetical selectron. For a quark, a squark, and so on.
Okay.
These partner particles, they'd have slightly different properties than their partners.
Okay, but how do these Adinkra symbols actually map these relationships?
Right.
It still feels like we're talking about apples and oranges.
Think of it this way. These symbols, with their lines and their shapes, can visually represent the intricate relationships between these theoretical particles.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a visual shorthand for really complicated math equations.
So it's almost like these symbols predicted concepts in modern physics.
That's one interpretation, yeah.
That's wild. That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
And it leads to some seriously mind-boggling questions.
Right.
And you were saying something about these symbols also having a connection to hypercubes?
They also had a connection to something called hypercubes or tesseracts.
Wait, tesseracts, like that four-dimensional cube thing from Interstellar?
Exactly. A mind-bending shape that exists in 4 dimensions.
Yeah.
The fact that Adinkra symbols can be mathematically linked to these higher dimensional objects suggests they might be tapping into something beyond our everyday experience.
Okay, my head is spinning.
Yeah.
Ancient symbols linked to higher dimensions. And you also said something about error-correcting codes.
That's right.
What was that about?
That's perhaps the most mind-blowing discovery of all, I think.
Okay.
The mathematical structure of Adinkra symbols actually contains error-correcting codes, similar to those that are used in digital communication.
So you're saying these ancient symbols have a built-in mechanism for ensuring that information is transmitted accurately?
Precisely.
Wow.
And if you think about it, error correction is essential for any complex system to function reliably.
Right.
You know, our own DNA has error correcting mechanisms.
It's true. It's true.
It's almost as if the universe itself might be built on similar principles, you know?
Hold up. Are we saying the universe might have, like, a built-in spell check?
That's a fascinating thought.
That's a really fascinating thought. There's a lot to process. Ancient symbols, higher dimensions, error-correcting codes. And we haven't even touched on human behavior.
And that's where we're headed next, because this book argues that these very same forces that shape the universe might also be at play within us, influencing our actions and shaping our destinies.
I'm all ears. Let's dive into that duality of human nature that you mentioned. What's the story with the growing and the burning?
Well, think of them as opposing forces within us that are constantly pushing and pulling, shaping our desires, shaping our reactions.
Yeah.
The growing represents our inherent drive towards expansion, learning, evolution.
So like that innate human urge to learn and create and leave our mark on the world.
Exactly.
Okay.
On the flip side, you've got the burning, which represents those primal urges that sometimes lead to destructive behaviors, often driven by fear, anger, or the need for dominance.
So it's like an internal tug of war.
It is.
Between our better angels and our darker impulses.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And the book argues that this duality is deeply rooted in our biology,
Okay.
a legacy of our evolutionary past. For most of human history, survival was the primary focus.
All right, yeah.
And so those primal burning urges, they were essential for staying alive.
Makes sense.
They often override our more nuanced desires.
Yeah, we needed those fight or flight instincts
You did.
to avoid predators
Yeah.
and secure resources. But how do those instincts play out in the modern world? I mean, we're not exactly fending off saber-toothed tigers anymore.
That's the key question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because while we might not be facing physical threats on a daily basis, those primal urges are still hardwired into our brains.
Right.
They can hijack our decision-making, especially when we're under pressure or stress.
So even though our rational mind knows better,
Yeah.
those deeper, more primitive instincts can still take over.
Exactly. And that's where things get really interesting, because the book argues that we often underestimate the power of these primal urges.
Okay.
We like to believe that we're in complete control,
Right.
but sometimes these deeper impersonal forces can override our conscious desires.
Whoa. That's a little unsettling. So you're saying that sometimes we're not even fully aware of the forces driving our actions.
It's a challenging concept, yeah, but one worth exploring. And it leads us to the next fascinating aspect of this deep dive,
Okay.
the evolution of consciousness.
Okay, bring on the evolution. I'm ready to understand how we went from pure instinct to, well, being able to have this conversation right now.
Well, as our nervous systems developed,
Yeah.
we gained the capacity to make choices, to move beyond purely instinctual responses.
Okay.
Our brains became more complex, capable of processing information, forming memories, and making predictions.
So we became less like robots programmed to react.
Yes,
And more like beings capable of reflection and learning.
precisely. And this is where Carl Jung's ideas come into play. He talked about the psychification of instincts, which might sound a bit intimidating.
Psychification, yeah. So it does sound a little intense.
It's actually a pretty straightforward concept.
Okay.
Jung was saying that as consciousness evolved, our instincts became intertwined with our individual minds.
Okay.
They were no longer purely biological impulses. They were now filtered through our unique experiences, thoughts, and emotions.
So instead of just reacting on autopilot,
Yeah.
we developed the ability to process those instincts,
Mm-hmm.
choose how to respond, and shape how those instincts manifest in our lives.
Exactly. And it's a constant ongoing process.
Wow.
Every time we reflect on our actions, question our motivations, or make a conscious choice that goes against a primal urge, we're essentially fine-tuning this interplay between instinct and consciousness.
That's actually pretty empowering.
Yeah.
It means we're not just slaves to our biology. We have a say in how those primal forces play out in our lives. But I have to ask, if it's not just about basic survival instincts, what else is driving us?
That's a great question, and it leads us to some of Jung's other fascinating ideas about the forces that shape human behavior. We'll dig into those right after.
Okay.
We'll dig into those next time.
I'm ready. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
All right, cool.
So we've established that there's more to human behavior than just basic survival instincts.
Right.
What are some of these other forces that Jung identified?
So alongside those primal drives, Jung identified 3 other fundamental urges that influence us: activity, reflection, and creativity.
Activity, reflection.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. We're constantly doing things,
Right.
thinking about things. But why is creativity so crucial? I mean, it seems a bit less
Yeah.
essential for survival
Yeah.
compared to, like, avoiding predators.
Well, Jung believed that this creative drive, this is what truly sets humans apart.
Okay.
It's the force behind innovation, art, culture, everything that makes us unique. It's almost as if we're hardwired not just to exist, but to express ourselves, to make meaning, to leave our mark on the world,
So it's not just about surviving, it's about thriving.
Exactly.
It's about taking those raw materials of existence and shaping them into something new, something that reflects our own inner world.
Precisely. And this creative urge, Jung argued, is intimately tied to the evolution of consciousness itself.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together. The Adinkra codes, with their hints of a deeper order, these primal forces within us, and the emergence of consciousness and creativity. It's almost like we're on this quest to understand not just the world around us, but like the world within us.
And that quest, I think, is what makes this whole exploration so compelling. But before we go any further, there's a passage in Echotruth that I think beautifully captures this idea of connecting with our inner selves. It's a prayer to the spirit within.
Oh, yes. That prayer really stood out to me as well. There's just so much depth packed into those few lines.
It starts by acknowledging the infinite knowledge, absolute truth, and unconditional love within. Right off the bat, it sets the tone for this deep, reverent connection with our inner selves.
It's almost like a recognition that within each of us there's like this vast reservoir of wisdom and potential just waiting to be tapped into.
Exactly. And then it goes on to ask for guidance so that I may identify and rectify errors along the path of my development, you know?
It's not about striving for some like unattainable perfection, right? It's about embracing that messy, imperfect process of becoming.
Precisely. And finally, it asks for strength to overcome challenges, recognizing that within us lies the power of your capability for the duration of all time. It's a powerful affirmation of our resilience, our ability to face whatever life throws at us.
That prayer, for me, really ties back to that concept of error correction that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
It's like we have that same capacity within us to identify and correct course to kind of realign ourselves with that inner wisdom.
I absolutely agree. And it leads us into another fascinating piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
The book, it presents a table that connects frequencies to specific emotions and outcomes.
Okay.
Suggesting there's a correlation between our vibrational state and what we manifest in our lives.
Okay, this sounds intriguing.
Yeah.
I've always been fascinated by that idea of energy and its impact on our experiences.
Yeah.
What does the table actually say?
Well, it suggests that higher frequencies, those associated with feelings of love, joy, peace, lead to positive emotions and what it calls rapid manifestation of intentions.
So essentially, when we're vibrating at a higher frequency, feeling good, we're more likely to attract positive experiences into our lives.
That's the general idea.
Yeah.
Conversely, lower frequencies, those associated with fear, anger, despair, are linked to negative emotions and often create resistance, making it harder to achieve our goals.
It's almost as if those negative emotions are like creating a kind of energetic blockage, preventing us from tapping into our full potential.
Exactly. And the table even suggests that some of the lowest frequencies can completely block manifestation altogether.
Wow, that's a pretty powerful concept.
Yeah, it is.
It really makes you think about the impact our emotional state has on our reality.
It does.
So if we want to create a more positive and fulfilling life, it's not just about focusing on external actions.
Right.
It's about cultivating a higher internal frequency.
That's a key takeaway, and it circles back to those growing forces we discussed earlier.
Yeah.
Those urges to learn, to create, to evolve, they naturally align with those higher frequencies, those positive emotional states.
It's all starting to come together, isn't it?
Yeah.
From ancient symbols to modern physics, from primal urges to the evolution of consciousness.
It really is.
It seems like everything is connected.
It really does.
But I have to admit, this is a lot to take in.
It certainly is a deep dive, no pun intended, and we've only just scratched the surface of what this book explores. But before we delve any further, maybe it's a good time to reflect on what we've learned so far.
I like that. Take a moment to let it all sink in.
Yeah.
So far, we've explored the fascinating connection between Adinkra symbols and modern physics, hinting at a deeper order to the universe than we might imagine. We've delved into the duality of human nature, those opposing forces within us that shape our actions and reactions. And we touched on the evolution of consciousness, the idea that we're not just driven by instinct, but by something more, something that compels us to create, to evolve, to leave our mark on the world.
Beautifully summarized. And what really stands out to me is this idea that we have the potential to debug ourselves.
Oh, right.
To identify and correct those patterns of thought and behavior that are holding us back.
That's such a powerful image.
It is.
It's like we're all walking around with this like incredible software, but it's riddled with bugs that prevent it from running smoothly.
And just like a computer program needs to be debugged to function optimally, we might need to do some inner work to clear out those bugs and allow our true potential to shine through.
All right, I'm game.
Okay.
But how do we actually do that?
Yeah.
How do we identify those bugs in the first place?
Well, that's where self-awareness comes in.
Right.
The book emphasizes the importance of paying attention to our thoughts, our emotions, our behaviors, and noticing the patterns that emerge.
So it's about becoming more mindful of our inner world.
It is.
Like an observer watching the show of our own minds.
Exactly. And once we start to see those patterns, we can begin to question them. You know, why am I reacting this way?
Yeah.
What beliefs are driving this behavior? Is this serving me or is it holding me back?
It's almost like we become our own, like, inner detectives.
Yes.
Searching for clues to understand why we do the things we do.
Yeah.
And once we have those clues, what then? How do we actually start, like, debugging?
That's where the real work begins, and it's not always easy. It might involve challenging limiting beliefs, developing new coping mechanisms, or even seeking professional guidance.
It sounds like a journey of self-discovery.
It is.
And it probably takes a lot of courage and honesty to really dig deep and face those bugs head on.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing the rewards are worth it.
Absolutely, because when we clear out those bugs, we free up so much energy and potential.
Okay.
It's like removing the obstacles that are preventing us from living our best lives.
I can see how that ties back to those higher frequencies we were talking about.
Yes.
If those negative thoughts and behaviors are like energetic blocks,
Yeah.
then clearing them out would naturally raise our frequency,
Yeah.
allowing us to attract more positive experiences.
That's a great way to put it. And it brings us back to that concept of the growing, that innate drive within us to expand, evolve, and reach our full potential.
It's like we're all on this journey of growth, but we have to clear out the bugs along the way to keep moving forward.
That's it.
This is all so fascinating.
It is.
But I have to ask, where does the whole evolution of consciousness thing fit into all of this?
That's a great question, and it's one that the book explores in depth.
Okay.
It suggests that this journey isn't just about individual growth.
Right.
It's about the evolution of consciousness itself.
So as we each do our own inner work, as we raise our individual frequencies and align ourselves with those growing forces,
Yes.
we're actually contributing to a larger collective awakening.
That's the idea.
Wow.
And it brings a whole new level of meaning and purpose to our individual lives, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
It makes you realize that even the smallest acts of self-awareness and growth can have a ripple effect on the world around us.
They can.
But let's be honest. Sometimes it feels like the world is spiraling in the opposite direction
Sure.
towards more chaos and disharmony.
I understand that feeling.
Yeah.
But remember, we're talking about a process, an evolution.
Right.
And evolution isn't always linear or predictable. There are going to be ups and downs, periods of growth, and periods of seeming regression.
So it's not about getting discouraged when things get tough.
Right.
It's about trusting that there's a larger process at play, even if we can't always see it.
Exactly. And remembering that we're not alone in this journey.
Yeah, this deep dive it's been incredible.
It has.
We've gone from ancient African symbols to cutting-edge physics, from the depths of human nature to the heights of consciousness.
Yeah.
And somehow, it all seems to be connected.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
The way seemingly disparate threads of knowledge can weave together to create a tapestry of understanding.
It's like we've been given a glimpse into the, grand design of the universe.
Yeah.
And our place within it.
And with that glimpse comes a sense of responsibility,
Yeah.
a call to action, to live our lives in alignment with that design.
To embrace that journey of growth,
Mm-hmm.
to, debug our inner world, and to contribute to the evolution of consciousness.
Yes.
But where do we go from here?
Yeah.
How do we take all of these insights and turn them into action?
That's a great question, and it's one that deserves its own deep dive.
Yeah.
But for now, let's leave our listeners with one final thought to ponder.
Okay. I like that.
If the universe is constantly striving for balance and harmony, if it has built-in mechanisms for correcting errors and maintaining order, then maybe, just maybe, we have those same mechanisms within us. Maybe we have the innate ability to self-correct, to find our way back to wholeness, and to create a world that reflects the beauty and harmony of the cosmos.
It's a beautiful vision.
It is.
And one that I think is worth striving for.
Absolutely. And who knows, maybe as we delve deeper into these mysteries, we'll uncover even more clues to help us on our journey. But for now, let's move on to the final part of this deep dive, where we can talk about how to take action.
Let's do it. So we've covered a lot of ground already.
Yeah, we have.
Ancient symbols, hidden codes in the universe, the forces that drive us.
It's a lot.
It's a lot to wrap your head around. But I think the big question is, where do we go from here?
Yeah.
How do we actually take all this amazing insight and put it into practice?
That's the question.
Right? It's all well and good to talk about higher frequencies and self-correction.
Yeah.
But how do we actually make that shift in our day-to-day lives? It can all feel a bit abstract.
Well, the good news is Echotruth doesn't just leave us hanging with these big ideas.
Right.
It offers some surprisingly practical tools for applying these principles.
Okay. I'm definitely interested in the practical side of things. What kind of tools are we talking about?
Well, remember that table linking frequencies to specific emotions and outcomes? Let's revisit that for a moment.
Yeah, that table was pretty eye-opening. If I'm remembering correctly, it suggested that higher frequencies, like love, joy, and peace, lead to more positive results,
Yes.
while lower frequencies like fear, anger, and despair create resistance and can even block our ability to manifest what we want.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So one of the most practical steps we can take is to simply become more aware
Okay.
of our emotional state throughout the day.
Okay.
Where are our emotions generally falling on that spectrum?
Right.
Are we unconsciously dwelling in those lower frequencies?
Yeah.
Or are we actively cultivating the higher ones?
So it's like an ongoing self-check-in, right? Okay, right now I'm feeling stressed
Yeah.
and anxious. That's a low-frequency emotion. What can I do to shift my energy?
You got it. And the book suggests that even small, subtle shifts can make a big difference. Taking a few deep breaths, listening to uplifting music, focusing on things we're grateful for. These simple practices can help raise our frequency.
I like that. It's not about forcing ourselves to feel happy all the time.
Right.
It's more about recognizing when we've dipped into a lower frequency
Yeah.
and having some tools to gently guide ourselves back up.
And as we become more adept at recognizing and shifting our emotional state, we can start to apply that awareness to our actions, to the choices that we make throughout the day.
So instead of reacting impulsively from a place of fear or anger,
Right.
we can pause, take a breath, and choose a response that's more aligned with a higher frequency. It's like we're taking that split second to debug our reaction before we act.
And that's where this concept of error correction really comes into play. Just as those Adinkra codes can correct errors in data transmission,
Right.
we can develop that same capacity within ourselves to catch those errors in our thinking and behavior and course correct.
This all ties back to the prayer to the spirit within too, right?
It does.
Asking for the strength to overcome challenges and to rectify errors along the path of my development.
It's a beautiful reminder that, we're all works in progress.
Right.
And making mistakes is part of the journey.
Yeah.
The key is to learn from those mistakes and keep moving forward.
So it's not about striving for some impossible ideal of perfection.
No.
It's about embracing the messiness of being human.
It is.
And trusting that we have the inner resources to navigate the ups and downs.
Yeah.
To learn and to evolve.
I love that.
Me too. This has been an incredible deep dive.
It has.
We've gone from ancient African symbols to cutting-edge physics, from the depths of human nature to the heights of consciousness, and somehow it all seems to be connected.
It's amazing, isn't it? The way these seemingly disparate threads of knowledge can weave together to create this tapestry of understanding.
It really is. It's like we've been given a glimpse into the grand design of the universe, and our place within it.
And with that glimpse, it seems to me, comes a sense of responsibility, a call to action, to live our lives in alignment with that design.
To embrace that journey of growth, to debug our inner worlds, and to contribute to the evolution of consciousness.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow. This has been an incredible deep dive.
It has.
Thank you so much for taking us on this journey.
Oh, the pleasure was all mine. Thank you for having me.
So, to our listener, as you go about your day-to-day, just remember those Adinkra symbols.
Yeah.
Those intricate shapes that hold, like the secrets of the universe.
Yeah.
Remember the primal forces within you, the growing and the burning.
Yes.
And the power you have to choose which one will guide your actions. And most importantly, remember that you're not alone on this journey. We are all connected. We are all evolving. And together, we have the potential to create a world that reflects the beauty, harmony, and infinite possibility of the cosmos.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep shining your light.
This has been The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us.